Well, good evening and welcome to the COVID-19 pandemic update. I'm Kayode Okikulu. First, the highlights. Nigeria, South Africa, others warn of imminent third wave, call for stricter measures. Oyo State set to commence administration of second dose of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine amid fears of third wave. On a foreign scene, Greece ends almost 7-month lockdown measures and opens officially to tourists on May the 15th. Well, the official public holidays may be over, but the Eid al-Fitr festivities are still very much in the air. Add to that the weekend. Millions of Nigerians are spending time with family and friends, which is very important, I should say, especially at a time like this. But please do so with the necessary precautions. Nigeria continues to record daily cases of COVID-19 infections, which is on a steady rise, by the way. So as you celebrate Eid and the weekend, do wear a face mask, keep your hands clean, avoid large gatherings, and encourage others to do the same. We'll see this as your contribution to keeping yourself and those around you safe. In the meantime, take a look at the latest COVID-19 trends.
The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, is advising that Nigeria has one of the highest burdens of zoonotic diseases such as COVID-19, but it has developed one health plan to respond to the challenge. There has been no COVID-19 related death in the last 24 hours, maintaining the total toll at 2,066. According to the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC, 53 new COVID-19 infections have been reported from 3 states in the last 24 hours. Lagos tops the list with 36 new infections. Rivers recorded 14 cases as it did 48 hours ago, and Akwa Ibom recorded 3. The latest tally raises the total number of confirmed cases to 165,612. 13 persons have been discharged after testing negative to the virus, raising the total number of recoveries to 156,387. There are currently 7,159 active cases of the virus in the country, and the total number of samples tested is edging closer to 2 million. According to the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, over 1.7 million Nigerians, representing 87.7% of the target population, have been vaccinated so far. Total confirmed cases around the world are over 161 million, and more than 3.3 million deaths have been reported.
The governor of Adamawa State, Fintiri, has been speaking on the vaccination drive in the state, while also appealing to citizens to follow the necessary precautions to ensure that they remain safe and healthy, considering the fact that COVID-19 is still ravaging and killing a lot of people across the globe. The governor made this appeal at the Lamido's Palace in Yola, the state capital, as part of his Eid al-Fitr message.
I urge people that whenever the vaccine is available, they should ensure that they go out to take the vaccine, because that is the only way out. You can see the country that have maintained and strengthened the effort towards vaccination. The pandemic has really gone down almost to single digits in those countries. So I think for those of us that have taken the vaccine, I also ask that when the time for the second vaccination is around, they should all go out and take their second dose, because the vaccine is available.
And also across River State, where the government is asking Muslims to observe all COVID-19 precautions as they celebrate the 2021 Eid al-Fitr in the state. The State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Betta Edu, who marked the celebration with residents of Bugobiri, a Muslim-dominated community, and the physically challenged, advised that following these simple COVID-19 precautions can save their lives. She also donated face masks and food items to members of the family.
we're using this occasion to advocate to them on the need to protect themselves and their loved ones against COVID-19. We're also talking to them about other diseases, as well as the need to get vaccinated for those other vaccine-preventable diseases. Furthermore, we have spoken to the women on the need to patronize the health facilities and deliver with skilled birth attendants. We've spoken to them on the importance of good hygiene and sanitation, washing their hands often. In our own words, one can no bar cholera, one can no bar COVID-19, one can no bar diarrhea. All of those issues can be avoided. Hospital visits can be avoided if they can wash their hands, protect their children and protect their loved ones.
The National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, that's NAFDAC, continues to welcome prospective homegrown solutions to COVID-19. But then just what's the process of developing these medications and how well do they actually work? Not forgetting the big question about safety. Well, tonight on the program, we are joined by someone who has been involved in the development of a COVID-19 medication and definitely knows better. Olakposi Omotui is a senior research fellow at the Institute for Drug Research and Development at Babalola University, Ado-Ekiti. Good to have you on the program. There's been a lot of buzz around this, but for NAFDAC to have visited to assess what you've been working on, it means there's substantial prospects in this one. But first, can you tell us, what is it? Is it a vaccine, a cure, or an antiviral drug?
Thank you very much. Good evening for her. I'm very grateful for having me. It's not a vaccine. It's not a synthetic drug. It's actually an herbal drug, which, of course, should be something to cheer about.
So it's herbal. Is it a syrup type? Is it a? We'll still get to the process of getting to this point, but I just want to imagine it. Is it a syrup? Is it a tablet, or what is it?
It's going to be a syrup formulation, basically. It's a syrup formulation. Yeah.
All right.
Basically.
So let's talk about the process, because I know it's no child's play to get to this point. How did you, get to this point? It must have been quite a journey.
Thank you very much. Actually, the journey of working with viruses actually started in 2014 at the peak of Ebola virus disease in West Africa. At that time, I was with the Nagasaki University Therapeutic Innovation Center, Nagasaki University, where we were developing drugs for Ebola. And I felt that my expertise was needed better in Africa than it was in Japan. So I resigned and I came home. And the journey was just about putting up the manpower, putting up whatever facilities we needed to do antiviral research. So 2019-20 were the time that we had the opportunity to test the things that we put together to see whether they were going to work well or not. So at that time, we're looking at where we had comparative advantage in terms of what we had to be in our arsenal in Nigeria and in Africa. And of course, plants became something very topical at that time. So we, at that time at AUA, where I primarily do my job, we were screening one of the plants and we're getting some very fantastic results. Then later, we had to move into Babalola University, where we had the necessary funding to be able to do a lot. And we expanded, starting from 1 to about 18 plants at that time, looking at specific pharmacologies. So by the time we finished, we were able to identify one that was able to exhibit what the scientists would call polypharmacology, being able, a single monoherbal preparation that is able to attack COVID-19 pathology at different stages. And that's exactly where I think NAFDAC became very interested in what we're doing.
So at what stage are you in this, development process? I know there are different hurdles to cross, but where exactly are you now?
Okay, great. So like I told you, we had a primary screening program, and the primary screening program of 3 types. Number 1, we deployed very extensively on our experience in biocomputation to be able to identify compounds from this plant that, from this series of plants, 18 I told you earlier, that has the capacity of inhibiting different stages of COVID-19 pathology. Then we advanced to testing them out in the laboratory by what is called a reductionist kinetic approach. In that approach, you are supposed to take an enzyme or a process and study them in the test tube to see whether what the computer was telling you was actually right or wrong. And from there, you identify the fractions. So you cannot just go take a leaf, grind, and start using. It doesn't work like that. You now have to identify the fraction that is doing what it was doing. That we have done. Then also we go ahead to identify what exactly are in those fractions, that the phytochemical basis. This time around, you could use things like HPLC to try to have a glimpse into the chemical composition of those things. So we found that out. Then after we finished the in vitro work, we decided to write, and it was the time the CBN was asking for call for grants. We wrote hoping we would get something to further our work. That didn't come up. Then we returned back to the founder of Abuad to tell him we had capacity to do more, but we didn't have the funds. So he provided the funds to further do work on animal studies. In animal studies, we were able to use specific parts of COVID-19 to elicit what is called hyperinflammation episodes or hyperinflammatory episodes in the animals, and we're able to see serious blockade, of these processes by the fractions of the plants that we're working with. So holistically, we had different stages of COVID-19 pathology that we think preparation should be able to take care of very confidently.
So if I get you correct, you're saying it has gone through some form of animal trials, but not human trials as of now?
Not human trials. Well, in Nigeria, you cannot do human trials except you have NAFDAC giving you the go-ahead to do that. And that's exactly why we've, put up our papers in the first place to come and let us see what we're doing. And before you can do human trial, you have to understand that you have to get the dosage correctly. You have to also do what is called the no observed adverse effect levels correctly. That is toxicity studies. Yeah. That we have also done satisfactorily. And that's the reason the NAFDAC is going to list us so that we can do human trials in this. But we're very confident in what we have, in its ability to be able to do what we are claiming it will do.
It's quite exciting to know that at least there are potentials, homegrown potentials right here in Nigeria. But, for the average person listening out there, I'm sure the question in their minds is, yes, you sound very excited about this. You seem to be very confident about it. But just how soon can it be, or will it be ready or available?
Well, thank you for that question. Even the vaccines that many companies in the world and various very big establishments have put together, sometimes you have to do what is called emergency, authorization for the use of a lot of things like this. I think once the NAFDAC is assured of the safety of our product, I'm sure they would allow it to go through clinical trials. And I'm sure as soon as the clinical trial results come out, it will be able to go into what is called commercialization. The reason we are very confident that this will sail through is that we did not just go the way of Madagascar in this case. No, we leveraged very heavily on basic biomedical sciences. And when I mean basic biomedical sciences, we're talking about understanding the pathology of a disease and, of course, how our innovation is able to attack that. So that's exactly why we're very confident in that. And again, when you do something inside a test tube, your level of confidence might actually be very low. By the time you graduate into using animal models for your experiment, and you still get very good results, then you know that the level of applicability in humans become even higher than you studied.
Okay. Let me see if we could just wind down on this one quickly. I know you touched on this. Funding was a major challenge for you. Was that the only challenge you faced in this process?
Well, I thank you. I think the most important thing, the most important factor really would be if you have human resource capital. We have human resource capital that is actually cut across a lot of places. I will tell you for free. We have researchers in Africa Balola University that are trained all over the world. They are some of the very best people you can see around in Nigeria. We have some that we've collaborated with in NABDA, National Agency for Biotechnology Development, agency rather, NABDA, in Abuja. We have people in AAUA where I am primarily here. So we have a very robust set of people that have worked on this together with us. Here, I'm just very lucky to be the guy, leading this whole process. That's number one. So I wouldn't say human capital is our problem. Okay. The only problem really would have been funding, because even if you're very brilliant and you have very good and sellable ideas and you don't have the funds to back them up, it's only going to die as a wish. Well, clearly this conversation is not dying just yet. We've just begun, but we'd like to thank you so much for at least shedding some light on what you have done so far. Omotoyi Olaposi is a senior research fellow at the Institute for Drug Research and Development at Afebabala University. We wish you the very best. Thank you very much. The Oyo State government is set to start administering the second dose of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in the third week of this month. This is according to the coordinator of the Primary Healthcare Board in the state, Dr. Muideen Olatunji, who says there are enough vaccines to complete the doses of all who received the first jab.
The Oyo State government has vaccinated over 67,000 people against COVID-19, representing 87% of its target population for the first phase. Wow. The coordinator of the National Primary Health Development Agency in the state, Dr. Muideen Olatunji, says the vaccination exercise is still taking place across the state.
Everyone vaccinated at that date is assured of the second dose of this vaccine, which will be commencing in the third week of May. That will run through the month of June. By the end of June, we hope to conclude the complete immunization of every person that has been enlisted for this first phase of this vaccination exercise.
Although there are only 2 active cases on admission, the chairman of the COVID-19 task force, Professor Temitope Alonge, concerned that complacency capable of erasing the gains against the virus has set in, is introducing new measures to curb the spread.
Those advisories are still in place, but the additions have actually become necessary. One of the additions is that in the educational sector, where we have a lot of students who are in accommodation within the premises or even outside, it's advisable that we should deploy the RDT, the Rapid Diagnostic Test Kits, to try and identify cases very quickly, rather than wait for the PCR, which is more expensive and it takes a little bit of a longer time.
Currently, Oyo State has confirmed 6,855 cases of the virus, discharged 6,729 patients, and 124 people have died of COVID-19 related causes.
Outside Nigeria, in Europe, majority of countries have been making progress with vaccine rollout. In Germany, for example, more than 27 million people have already received their first shot. So around 10% of the population is now fully vaccinated. But the concern in the country is now shifting to something else. How to make sure that those who say they are vaccinated really are. Well, let's get more on this with DW correspondent Chiponda Chimbele, who joins us from Berlin. Well, Chiponda, first, why is the concern about proving that you've been vaccinated rising at this time?
Well, the concern about proving that you've been vaccinated is rising because the stakes are getting higher. The rules have changed this month. Basically, you don't need to have a negative COVID test anymore if you've been vaccinated or if you've had the disease before and can prove that you still have immunity. And that is exactly why a lot of people may be more willing to have a fake vaccine certificate. And that's what the police in Germany have warned. And that is something that we may see rising as, of course, travel restrictions change for people who've been vaccinated. They won't even be needing to be in quarantine when they return from vacations, for instance. So, of course, this is something that the German police is warning may also end up rising as a result, because, of course, the stakes are higher and you can't easily get a vaccination appointment. The vaccines are not open to everyone, only people who've been prioritized at this point in most German states.
So clearly this is a big issue. I'm just thinking it's a no-brainer to have a foolproof system being put in place. Is there something like that?
Well, there is a pilot going on in the German state of Thuringia. And in that German state, when you get your second shot, you get a QR code generated, and that can go onto your phone. But that's only available at vaccination centers. And of course, that can't be faked. But for those who get vaccinated at doctors' offices, there is an issue because you cannot get it and you need to get it in the mail. So there's this digital test, of course, going on in Thuringia, and that's something they hope they can, roll out across the whole country at some point. But there's also perhaps the option to add a vaccine certificate to an app which was used to warn people if they had been exposed or close to someone who had been tested positive for the coronavirus, and that could happen by the end of June according to the health ministry. So those are two systems kind of already which I've mentioned, but there's some trials, and the huge concern of course with those digital systems is the data protection and of course the uptake as a result of that. There's a lot of fear in Germany about data privacy online, and so we need to see if these digital systems can be, taken up by a lot of people or not.
We'll wait to see, but let's talk about the continent at large now. How's the situation in other EU countries? Will Europeans be able to travel seamlessly between countries this summer? Because I know that's quite important.
There was an EU meeting this week on Tuesday where a COVID certificate was discussed, and that COVID certificate would apply for people who've been vaccinated, people who've recovered from COVID-19, and also for people who can prove that they're negative. And that was what was being discussed. So it wasn't really a vaccine passport at this point. It was just sort of to have the proof that you are corona-free, for any one of these three reasons. And that would perhaps help people move seamlessly between countries. One question that came up was whether a rapid negative test from the coronavirus would be applicable, but that was something that was left open for now. So hopefully within the coming weeks that will be decided whether this COVID certificate will be indeed available. There's talks of perhaps an EU-wide vaccine passport, but there hasn't been a concrete, huge step made to really work towards one at this point. And of course, every country is sort of working on its own means and methods of proving that people have been vaccinated, as we've just spoken about here in Germany. So it will be interesting to see whether there's going to be an EU-wide system or whether it's going to be use of this COVID certificate that I've spoken about. That is definitely something that we have to wait and see. And of course, there's a huge interest here in Europe to make sure that people can travel between countries, because of course, the tourist industry especially has been hit quite badly by the pandemic.
Well, great work, Chiponda. Thanks for the update. Back to the African continent, South Africa is on the brink of a third wave of infections, driven by a steady increase in new cases after a 4-day holiday weekend, which saw millions of people travel to see family and friends and attend religious gatherings. South Africa's test positivity rate rose to 7.45%, according to Health Department data. Well, that's the highest in 5 days, and it marks almost a month since the rate has hovered close to or above the 5% threshold. That's considered too high. And back to the EU. Tourist season is back in Greece as the country lifts most remaining restrictions on movements, despite reporting an average of 2,000 COVID-19 cases daily. The German tourists have begun flying in, and from May the 17th, Britons will be allowed to travel to amber list Greece, but they are advised not to. Only countries in the green list, such as Portugal, will the rules ease for significantly. But don't forget to protect yourself. The virus is still out there, so continue to take responsibility and visit our website, channelstv.com, for more updates and a better understanding of the pandemic. We also have all the big stories from politics to business, sports, all at your fingertips. Well, that's the COVID-19 update. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayadoki Kulu.